Hello, 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 everyone. How are you? Hope you're having an incredible, incredible day, and may peace be upon you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for watching my show. Yes, I can with me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. And today I have the fabulous, the inspirational, and someone who I admire a lot with his new thought, new way of thinking, a trailblazer, David Essel. MSOM, a #1 international best-selling author of Helping American Heals. He's also a counselor, radio, TV host, and minister. And you can find more about him on talkdavid.com. Jenny McCarthy says that David Essel is the new leader of positive thinking movement. So David, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Izdihar, we're back together. We are back together, sharing your energy, your love, mine combined, trying to make a difference in this world. I'm so honored to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. It's my absolute pleasure. And David and I got connected through a mutual friend that both of us really admire and respect, Dennis Postuma, who is the founder of Motivation and Success TV network. And Dennis connected me with David, and then David and I got connected. And when I was like checking out David, you know, as people always do, we need to like stalk people a little bit. So I found one of his videos, God knows from when. And when I was listening to the video, it was about bravery, talk about bravery. And David said that bravery is something individualistic, something that is personal to you. And one person's bravery doesn't mean it's equivalent the same as another person. And what caught me the most about his story is that about his mom in the 60s, if I remember correctly, sometime in the 60s, David's mom invited someone from a marginalized community, a little boy, about 10 years old, 11 years old, from a marginalized community to come and spend the summer with them. Now, this is in the 60s in an all-white neighborhood, and then you have a marginalized boy. And I can like, oh my God, this woman, not only she's brave and courageous, but she's a trendsetter. Nobody does that because nobody wants to rock the boat at any moment of time to shift things about. And I'm like, this woman is amazing. And I knew that she has her visions, her dream are beyond her years. Like she doesn't live in the 60s, she lives, you know, beyond her years. And what an amazing child that she's gonna have. And that is David. Oh my God, it still touches my heart when that story relating to, you know, as a mom myself, right? The things that she had to go through. It's like, you know what? We're just gonna have fun this summer. You boys go and play, and you know, we'll deal with the rest.
Yeah. And Izdihar, you know, it was so amazing when I got your email and you brought that story up about my mom, because, you know, my mom died about 1 year and 2 months ago, and she was my greatest fan. She was my greatest supporter. I was a very difficult child. I got into the world of addiction at 12. My mom never gave up on me. And and the story you tell is something I just love about my mom, because, you know, I was about 8 to 10 years old in the 60s, and we brought this child up from Harlem in New York City, all white neighborhood. It did not go well at all. The neighbors were so upset. And, you know, my mom was so grounded. I mean, when you said she's a trailblazer, it's so interesting. No one has ever said that about my mom before you, Izdihar, but it's really true. I mean, she was the most optimistic person. She was filled with deep faith. She knew her purpose on earth was to serve. And she brings this little boy into our family. We loved him. We had him for 3 months. He loved us. When he had to go back, it was very hard. But the neighbors went crazy. You know, they were just so upset. And if my mom did that, if she was alive today and did that, it wouldn't have the ripple effect it did, right? But you know that, and the cool thing about it is that on a conscious and subconscious level, for myself, my brother, my sister, we saw something that very few people saw back then. You know, we saw this beautiful heart, this heart of service to God, that she was willing to go out on a limb and to get ostracized by our own neighbors in order to make one little boy's summer better. So, you know, I can't say that I've always followed my mom. I wish I could say that, you know, because was so incredible, but I've done my best. And I think that when you have that kind of a role model growing up, eventually you're going to mature. It took me a few years, Izdihar. but eventually you're going to mature and you're going to want to be just like her. And that has been my whole life calling.
That is absolutely beautiful. I mean, you're the son of a legend, aren't you, David? You're a son of a legend. Like, her blood, her life force is in you, even though she's gone, but she is not gone, because her life force, her memories, and her teachings, even the food that she cooks for you, they're all within you. And obviously that grieving is another topic that, you know, we're probably going to touch it sometime soon. But today, David and I, we thought that we wanted to talk about mental health, because I feel like growing up, mental health, I never knew about mental health. And what I knew about that is that if someone is labeled as mentally unstable, they go to the cuckoo house, and then they've been treated like a disease. You know, don't touch them, don't look at them, don't speak at them. They're being casted off for whatever reason from their family, from the community. And I feel that is so harsh to dealing with, even as a child. But today I see a lot of people acknowledging, hey, you know what? I've got a mental health breakdown because of X, Y, and Z. And I see a lot of things happening, especially in the younger generations, young adults, teens. So David, let's kind of like give, what is this mental health thing? Like, is it like really a disease? Is it contagious that people can, you know, contract it? But what is this mental health thing that, and how can, you know, we'll talk about that first, and then we'll kind of like break it down on how we can navigate through it.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Izdihar, this topic. You know, when I said I had my addiction starting at 12, I was a very angry child. I was angry through my teen years, and no one could figure it out, which is why I went to the world of addiction, because my anger could be mollified with alcohol and drugs. And so when I found that it worked, I was so happy that I could have an escape from my own anger. It wasn't until my 30s that I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, clinical depression, and ADD. And I'm going, well, no wonder why I was an angry child. You know, it makes sense. I had all of this internal mental health issues. Now, we have to ask the question, what's the origin of them? You know, how does anxiety begin, depression begin, all of these type of things? And, you know, there's only a small percentage that we can see a genetic link for. As a matter of fact, something really fascinating, as of last week, because I check on a weekly basis, because mental health is such a huge part of my life. We have never found a direct gene for depression. We have never found a direct gene for anxiety. So when people say, well, you know, my mom was depressed, so I have the depression gene. My dad was anxious, so I have the gene for anxiety. Only a tiny percentage of people can actually correlate some type of genetic makeup with ongoing anxiety and depression. Now, there is a small window of people that affect that, but here's something incredible. Submerged anger, low self-confidence, low self-esteem are probably three of the biggest drivers of anxiety, depression, and any other type of mental illness. Now, when we look at bipolar or schizophrenia, now those mental health illnesses are directly related to genetics. Okay, so but even PTSD, which a lot of Americans and the world are experiencing right now, but we just don't realize it. You know, Simone Biles, the Olympic athlete that had to drop out,
the gymnastics.
You know, she dropped out because of a mental health issue, right? But in my opinion, one of the things that she's struggling from, and they went back into her past, and she really had a lot that she's moved through in life, but it was a PTSD experience. The stress of not taking care of whatever the mental health issues she was involved with, combined with the incredible pressure of the world staring at her, creates what we call a post-traumatic stress disorder, in my opinion, as a counselor. And that PTSD is when she had to raise her hand and say, I can't do this anymore. And it happens on a regular basis. So when we look at environments where a child was raised with a depressed parent, an alcoholic parent, an anxious parent, we say that the environment can be a huge contributor to us growing up with anxiety, depression, addiction, and more. So we want to look at the origin. When I work with a client that's struggling with anxiety, as a matter of fact, a great story is Izdihar. Over a year ago, just about a year ago exactly, A woman came to me because she couldn't leave the house. She had become agoraphobic with her anxiety. And she went to the doctor, and every type of medication that he put her on, she had a negative result. It was contraindicated.
Right.
Her body was saying, this doesn't work. When she came in and started working with me, within a couple of weeks, we found the origin. Her mom was an incredibly anxious person. Her mom was a perfectionist. Perfectionism creates anxiety in most people. So here she was raised in this environment. And then when COVID hit, all of the anxiety that she had never dealt with, now she's sitting at home with her husband 24/7, and it gave these emotions a chance to come to the surface. Now, it took us 9 months to get her fully clean, but she is out rocking the world right now. And her commitment to the program is why she's healed.
That is absolutely incredible, because you mentioned that it's not because of genetics, right? Certain things are genetically based, but this one, it is like you mentioned, the three biggest driver or the biggest force that could catapult this mental health with this anxiety, anger, and what was the other one, David?
Oh, low self-confidence and low self-esteem.
Low
So
self-esteem and low self-confidence. Yes.
yeah, and usually is how that works is when we don't have a lot of confidence, or self-esteem is self-love. So when we don't have a lot of confidence or self-love, we don't take care of ourselves. So we don't raise our hand and saying, I'm feeling off here. Like, what's going on? We just don't have the confidence. We're embarrassed that we might find out that maybe we're depressed. We're embarrassed that we may have anxiety. We're embarrassed that we may have some form of PTSD that we're going through, and I want to make a comment about PTSD.
Yes.
In our new book that you mentioned, Helping Americans Heal, The Ultimate Guide to Healing During These Challenging Times, I give a PTSD story that's very different than what most people believe. Most people believe PTSD is for veterans of war or active military veterans, right? Very first thing we say. So this woman comes in to work with me during COVID, and she said, David, I just don't know what it is. I'm unmotivated. I'm self-sabotaging. I'm drinking more and eating more, and I have no idea what it is. And so when we started working, when I tell you what she had gone through in 12 months, you're going to shake your head and say, well, of course she was feeling depressed and anxious and everything. But her husband and her had broken up in that year, the first year of COVID. The next year, she lost her 2 dogs of 13 years of age. Then she lost her job. She was on the verge of losing her home. Now, that's PTSD. She came in anxious, depressed. She was drinking too much, eating too much, self-medicating, right? So PTSD can be from multiple experiences that happen in a short period of time in someone's life. Or it could be when you were 5 years of age, you were thrown into a pool by adults just thinking it was cute, right? And that experience created so much anxiety around water that 30 years later, when you're near water, you sort of back off, and that's the PTSD experience. So it's not just veterans of war or active military. And especially during the pandemic, there's more people that categorized as PTSD than I've ever seen in my 43 years of work.
That is absolutely crazy. Like, to know that more people now have that kind of, PTSD than, like you said, in the 40 years that you've been doing the work. But kind of like what you said, David, like that lady, kind of when you trace it back, it comes back to her childhood. So many things that I've seen, even when in my work with helping other women, one of the reasons why they couldn't push through or they couldn't take the next step is because something that happened in the past that wasn't resolved, in the past. And obviously, as a child, how do you know whether you can resolve this? How do you know I need to do this? I need to recognize this. As a child, you wouldn't be able to. Now, probably because you can YouTube, you can Google stuff and you get some idea. You get some people talking on YouTube, what have you not. But it kind of brings back to the childhood. And I know it's not always possible to have a good childhood. Even if we have a good parent, sometimes not always possible because of the environment or the school or things that happen. So can you just give us give some tips to the parents to kind of help their child to have at least, whether it's recognizing certain symptoms
Mhm.
before, once you recognize the certain symptoms, then these are the things that you can do to take care of, or these are the things that you can do to go the next step. Can you give us some tips, especially myself as a parent of 3? What are
Yeah.
the symptoms that we can see, even for the teachers that are listening, that are in the education sector, that dealing with young children and teenagers? What are the symptoms that we can see in early childhood? Because then if you don't take care of it, like that lady, it catapults 20 years on, 30 years on, and then suddenly, bam, it hits, and then they don't know what hits them.
Right.
So yeah,
Well,
do you have some tips to for us to kind
yeah.
of recognize that?
Izdihar, and it's exactly what happened to me. I had two
Mm-hmm.
great, well-meaning parents that had no idea of what it was like to have a child who's depressed, a child who's anxious, So they just figured that there was something that I was angry about, but it had nothing to do with a deep emotional scar.
Mm-hmm.
When we are subject to peer pressure, so if you have a child
Mm-hmm.
and the child starts to change their behavior, they start
Right.
to radically say different words that they've never said before, or they start to dress very differently, or maybe they're hanging
Mm-hmm.
out with different types of people. I mean, these are all warning signs that something might be amiss. If you have an
Mm-hmm.
outgoing child that then starts to pull back and isolate, though that's a very easy sign to see.
Right.
If you have a child that has been great up to 6 years of age, but then at 10 they start pushing back over every little thing, we know something's going on. And here's
Mm-hmm.
the thing, you mentioned it perfectly. Children can't use the words, "Mom, I feel depressed." They can't.
Yes.
So anger is one of those
Yes.
early signs of depression, right? Isolation is an early sign of depression. Waking up and saying, I don't feel good to go to school today, is an early sign of anxiety if it turns
Mm-hmm.
into a pattern. When your child used to love some kind of sport or music or some organization in class and they start saying, I don't think that's for me anymore, that is a
Mm-hmm.
sign that says, go and talk to the instructor, the teacher, because there could be bullying going on, which is
Mm-hmm.
a huge issue in our world today with children, and teenagers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if your child starts to pull away from activities they've loved, let's go to the core, the source, which would be the instructor, and say, hey, how's my child doing here? I noticed that they used to
Right.
love doing their math exercises, and now they're skipping math class, or they used to love basketball or cheerleading or band or something, and now
Mm-hmm.
they're not practicing at home when they used to. See, children give off signs, Izdihar, as you
Mm-hmm.
know, but they can't verbally express. The brain doesn't mature until, for most people, 24. For me, I think it was around 50. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it really makes a lot of sense that they can't communicate. So watch their actions. Watch,
Mm-hmm.
if they start dragging in the morning, reluctant to go to school, then we have maybe a sense of anxiety going on. And if
Mm-hmm.
parents you can ask your child, is everything okay? But don't feed them information like, are you being bullied? Are you this? Are you that?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because
So just look at the signs that they are giving, something that is
yes,
odd, something that is off, something that is happening the same, like consistent. Sometimes we just have a bad day that day, right? But
yeah.
then we get back up again. And so that's different than what you're saying. These are the signs that happens either the opposite, something odd, something different, but it's happening over and over and over
Yeah.
again, that as parents or educators or people that works in society needs to kind of see and observe, so that what you mentioned that don't label it, are you this, are you this, are you being bullied, or are you being having this?
Yeah.
Why can't we kind of like say those words to see if it connects at that point?
Well, what we recommend to parents is first just ask, how are things going? I see that
Right.
you didn't want to go to band today. How are things going in band? Are you getting along with the instructor? Are you getting
Mm-hmm.
along with the other? You used to love playing piano or the bass or the clarinet or whatever. Like, what's going on, honey? Or you used to love
Mm-hmm.
cheerleading practice. Like, why is it that you're pulling away? You used to love art class and we haven't seen you do art. So it's really the questions that
Mm-hmm.
are broader than specific. Are you being bullied? Are you not being treated correctly? Because we might be putting thoughts into their heads that they go, yeah, that's it. I'm being bullied.
Right.
So, but if you continue to ask questions, hey, we haven't seen you working or talking to Matt or hanging out with Beth anymore. How are you guys doing? Like those kind of questions. Not you're not talking to Beth. Are you guys mad at each other?
Mm-hmm.
So we ask really open-ended questions, Izdihar, and we give the
Mm-hmm.
child a chance to process and think. If they say, I don't know, that's okay. They may not know. So,
Right.
right.
They know
So
how to express it, right?
yeah,
Like they just
they
say,
don't know the
oh,
words,
yeah.
so it might be true. So you may have to ask the questions from a different angle. But the second thing is just as important. Remember, the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of a child is to become independent.
Mm-hmm.
Parents forget this. Independence can start at 4, 6, 8,
Mm-hmm.
10. So, they're trying to find themselves. So it just because they start changing their clothes doesn't mean they're hanging with the wrong group yet.
Mm.
Just because, they're trying to find their independence. Maybe as parents, we push them a little bit to join soccer or baseball or band. Maybe they were doing it in the beginning just to satisfy our
Mm-hmm.
desires for them to be active, but it really
Right.
isn't their gig, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by asking more questions, and you may hear sometime, Mom, the only reason I joined band was because you were in band and you loved it so much. Oh my God, what a great breakthrough if we can get a child to
Yes.
say that, right?
Absolutely. And I think that is key, David, whether it's in children or the people that we know, rather than, like you said, feeding them certain kind of information, just ask them a question, kind of like a scientist, kind of like navigating, exploring, kind of asking that question to see, especially if a lot of the time, people, you can see it from their face, from their body language, something that is off.
Right.
But people are like, you know what, I'm not going to ask her just in case, this and that. But, if you see that happening, at least the very least, are you okay? How are you doing? What did you have for lunch? Just kind of like broader things, right? To trickle in the conversation and then listening for the clues that they
Yes.
give. The body is going to show you something, or the words that they're going to use. This is not how she or he usually talks.
Right.
So, and kind of like, and obviously after that, take care of them in a sense that help them go to see a therapist or counselor,
Sure.
like yourself, someone who is trained in that. Which is
let me make one more mention, because this communication thing is huge. I encourage all parents, and hopefully you're having dinner or some meal one time a day at least with your children. At the end of their day, their school day or whatever, is that we encourage a ritual every day. We're going to go around the table. I want you to tell me 2 things that happened in school today that you're really happy about, and 2 things that didn't go your way. We don't say 2 things that were terrible or whatever, And so we start to get children talking about gratitude. Well, here was 2 really cool things that happened, Mom. Here's 2 cool things that happened, Dad. And then and now that boosts their confidence and self-esteem. So when they can say to Mom and Dad, I'm so happy I got a C on math. Remember last month I got a D. Well, we should be celebrating that, right? And so we say, what good stuff happened at school today? And then the second part is where we really want to listen. And when they say, well, Mary once again didn't sit with me at lunch. Oh, I'm sorry, honey. What did that feel like? We don't ask, why didn't Mary, not sit with you first?
Right.
We want to get them talking about feelings, Izdihar. So well, I felt left alone and no one else is sitting with me. And of course, now we know we're going to be struggling with self-confidence and self-esteem. So the pattern in the bottom, what didn't go as you had hoped it would today? Those type of open-ended, innocent questions matched with what went well can get your child talking. But here's the thing. Don't wait until you see a negative sign to start this exercise. Start it today, because we want to get them talking and talking and talking. The more we can get our child communicating, the better parents we can be.
Absolutely. And that's such a huge tip for parents, including myself, because again, this is a new modality on how we raising children in this current age. My parents are amazing parents, but the modality may not work with how, I'm raising my children at the moment. Do this, don't say anything. Like, that's kind of modality that I was race, but my children, especially growing up, I grew up in Malaysia. My children grows up in America, you know, and other places as we are finally settling here. It's different, right, David? Like the communication, like at home, we only speak Malay, but as soon as my kids start school, they do not want to speak Malay anymore. They just want to speak English. The environment changes. They understand. I speak Malay to them, they can't speak back to me in like English. I'm like, okay. So that is like a fantastic tip to one of the things about American education system is that they teach children to be expressive and talk. So that's a fantastic tip at the table, you know. So what two cool things that happen at school today, or what's two not so cool things that happened,
That's
and
right.
kind of like the words that you're using. And I think you're spot on in kind of saying, right, don't ask, oh, why Jessica didn't sit with you at lunch, but rather, what is the feel? How did you feel about it? You know,
Yeah.
and then kind of gauging that. And this is what you're mentioning about mental health is a course that you have a course, right, that you're putting together, which is a certification course for about mental health and life mastery. Now, David, just quickly, what do you mean by certification, and what is the difference between a course and then a certification course?
Okay, great question. So our course is called the Mental Health and Master Life Coach Certification Course. It's 30 hours long. We do 10 hours. Most of the courses are done on weekends. We'll do 10 hours on a Saturday, 10 hours on a Sunday, and then they have 90 days to complete the remaining 10 hours. And during those 90 days, they're in touch with me regularly as they apply the principles that we learned over the weekend into the next 3 months. And then once they hand in all the materials, and there's a video that they hand in, a very short video, then they're certified to go out and to start working with people as a mental health and master life coach. Now, this world needs, and what we've done with our program, Izdihar, we're looking to create an army of mental health and master life coaches that go out across the US and the world. You know, with Zoom and everything else that we have, you can work with people from anywhere, right?
Correct.
Because we see mental health is the major challenge right now. The physical problems with the whole pandemic have started to simmer down. And now what we're seeing is just incredible amount of mental health issues. So this certification is incredibly important. I'm the only one that teaches it. So if you join me with a weekend group, it'll just be me for 20 hours. And then we also offer, Izdihar, if people want to do the course one-on-one with me, and that would probably not be a weekend. We would do it over 15 weeks, 1 day a week for 2 hours. So people can either work through the certification with me one-on-one or in a group. Now, I started certifying master life coaches in 1996. And in the last year, we totally revamped the program to focus on mental health. And I just want to try to sneak in a couple statistics of why this certification is so important. Not too long ago, the American Psychological Association, which is one of the most respected associations in the world of therapy and counseling, came out with a survey. 79% of Americans said that they have no emotional coping skills to deal with the stress they're going through in the pandemic. 79%. 80% of couples and marriages said they've never had as much stress and arguing in all the years of marriage as what's happened in the COVID. And then the last thing they found out, which I think is underreported, is they said 40% of respondents said they're dealing with anxiety and or depression. In my personal practice, we have about 70 to 75% of people right now who are not only dealing with finances, relationships, addiction, but they're also dealing with anxiety and depression. So the course was created for people to be able to go out there and to be leaders in the area of life that we believe is most needed right now. And the last thing I'll say is the suicide rate in the United States has gone up dramatically as well. I think it was just a couple of years ago, we would unfortunately have about 130 Americans a day commit suicide. And the last statistic I saw is 156 people in America commit suicide every day. So this course, while we're not going to prevent suicide, we will educate people in it so they can look for signs and then do referrals to the professionals that really need to be doing the work if it's that serious.
Absolutely. And that is absolutely mind-blowing to know that the suicide rate is increases, right? If like, throughout the year, 150 times 365, that's a huge number. And that is those that are being in statistic recorded, but those that are not in the statistics, there are probably more, which is, more times than now, especially with the pressure. For example, you want to go to college, right? It is hard work for any child, not just
Yes.
financially, but the amount of courses or classes they have to take, the AP, whatever, they have to be scoring 100% all the time. They have to play soccer, they have to be in a band, they have to be in a stage, they have to perform, they have to do podcasts for all I know. Like, so many things.
That's going to be a requirement soon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I've seen children like waking up and then wake up so early, and then they don't go to bed till later. They always have piano or band or whatever it is, soccer, whatever it is, football. I'm like, oh my God, I don't think like even as myself, I can live that way. So it's becoming more and more and more. And I have a gut feeling that statistic is going to be more as we go along, because of this generation that have been, put in a pressure cooker kind of thing. That's gonna, go explode later on. So David, where can people find about your course? Is it on talkdavid.com that people can find out more how to work with you and the details of it, or to reach out to you?
Yeah, Izdihar, if our group here goes to talkdavid.com, you can look for the mental health and master life certification and do it in a group and or one-on-one. And if you just want general help, like you're struggling with anxiety, depression, maybe weight gain from the pandemic, addiction, relationship challenges, we work with people one-on-one every day from all over the world. So you can either do the certification route and be part of the army to go out there and help others, or you can just work with me one-on-one, and we will work through, and we've been doing it for 43 years, as I mentioned. Our work is very deep, and we'll help you heal at the deepest level possible. I love this, Izdihar. So I invite everyone to go to talkdavid.com, see everything we offer. And remember this, I didn't battle through anxiety, depression, or addiction by myself. I had counselors. I still have counselors, Izdihar, because I want to keep my mind in a solid, straight, strong place, even during the insanity we're all going through. So having a counselor isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of powerful strength.
Absolutely. And that way you can have whatever that you need, the strength, the courage, and a good mental health, so that you can help others. You have the capacity to help others, rise. Like you said, you're creating an army of people who can help other people, even if it's just recognizing a sign, and also knowing, oh, you know what, this is how I can say, this is how I can, the words I can use, this is how I can behave. The last thing anybody wants in a state of mental health is being put down or being casted off, or feeling that, I remember as a mom, when I first had my first child, I had the feeling of depression, because it's a whole new world, right? The baby's crying, I'm not sleeping. The books have got nothing to it, right? They say, oh, you're not going to be sleeping. No, it's like when you live it, it's like a completely different world. So for those of you who are interested in checking out David and his work, he's been doing it for over 40 years, go to talkdavid.com. So David, let's wrap up with one final question. What is one fun thing that you do that people don't know about?
Oh, that's a great, I'm going to give you two things, two fun, super fun things I love to do. Number one is tennis. I am a massive fan of tennis. And number two, I love landscaping. I am landscaping. Izdihar, I will plan a plant, and 6 months later, I'll go, I'd like to put that over on this side of the house. I'm constantly doing that. I just love being outside, and I love plants. They're so beautiful. So those are two things I do for fun, and I love it every week.
Oh, that's amazing. You should come and do landscaping, because like the only thing that I can take care of is the plastic plant. Like the rest, even like cactus, just goes up. But thank God my husband is like, he has a little bit of a green thumb. My daughter has a green thumb, but I'm like, put that in front of me. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? Like, and then it just, so now my friends just give me, literally, they would give me like plastic plants, plastic flowers.
That's adorable.
Oh, thank you. So landscaping and tennis. So that is so basically you're more outdoorsy, just like you said.
Yeah, much more so. You will never, you know, I played basketball in college and I'm a basketball junkie. I watch, and I can't play anymore because of my knees, but I watch it on TV. But even if my favorite basketball teams are playing in the day on Saturday or Sunday, I'll never watch the game. I'm outside constantly.
That is amazing. The sunshine. And
Yes.
Where do you live, David?
In Florida, where I am very blessed because we
Florida,
get a lot of
so
sun
I'm in California, so you get to go out and have the beautiful sunshine. And I think sunshine, like having a sunshine, is one of the things that's going to help to make you happy and see the brighter side. Because we used to live in England for many, many years. It's dark, it's gloomy, it's rainy, it's cold. There's only a few days of the year that you literally get sunshine. So that. And now my husband was like, when I asked him, babe, do you want to go back to England? He was like, no, I want to stay in California. Like, we pay more, 10% more than everything than anyone else in other states, but it's the sunshine. So one of the tips that you can use based on David's experience, just go out. Go out there, experience the world, go outside, don't sit at home, experience the sunshine, do something outdoorsy, and that's gonna help. That's why he's like, David's always joyful. He's got that vitality and probably found the fountain of youth by doing all of that. So David, thank you so much for joining me. I know you and I, we can talk the whole day. We could just, you know, I could just come and fly to you. We could just chat for the whole weekend. But thank you so much for joining me. And what an important topic of knowing about mental health, how to recognize it, the 3 biggest factors in the symptoms of mental health, tips for parents. What an incredible conversation today, David. Thank you so much for joining me. And for those of you who are listening, thank you so much for listening and watching. This is your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. Tell yourself, yes, I can. And so it is done. So David, say goodbye to everybody. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.